What is up, everyone, and welcome back to youtube.com/DyllonKG, the place where you can become a better Dead by Daylight player and have a damn good time while doing it. And today, we're going to be defining the term that I've heard all too often, tunneling, and diving deep into what tunneling is and what isn't tunneling. As a killer main on Twitch, I will sometimes get people that come into my stream from my matches and tell me that I tunneled them. So I wanted to make this video to discuss what tunneling really even is. Now, tunneling, in my opinion, and based on my gameplay experience in the past 2 years of Dead by Daylight, is when you go after one survivor over and over again, regardless of what you're doing. So finding a survivor, smacking them, downing them, hooking them. If they get unhooked, drop whatever you're doing and go back to that hook, go back to that exact person, chase them down again. Tunneling, of course, is derivative of the term tunnel vision, which is, focusing one person only in tunnel vision on that individual. But I typically find that tunneling is repetitious behavior, and I'll kind of explain what I mean. A really good example is if you get put on the hook and you're unhooked while I'm still like 10 to 20 meters away. I haven't even been able to leave yet. Well, your team made a really unsafe play by unhooking you, and they decided to unhook you before I even had time to leave. So why wouldn't I go back and re-down that unhooked survivor? Now, I won't immediately put them back on the hook. I'll just leave them on the ground, of course, slugged, while I chase the person who did the unhooking. This will punish the team without immediately punishing the individual. See, this isn't tunneling in my eyes. This is actually me giving you, the individual, mercy and forcing your team off of generators to come get you, because I'm still trying to win the match, right? So that is slowing down the game in my favor while not immediately punishing you for a really unsafe play. A second example is if I put you on your second hook, I walk away. I engage in another chase with somebody else. You get unhooked, and during the chase with the other person, of course, I run across you again, unhealed. I may break off and go for you to get you out of the game, right? The idea here is you had time to get unhooked, you didn't heal or get healed. I have people to down. I didn't specifically try to find you or go after you, but I did stumble across you. And that's the biggest difference with tunneling, is intentionality. To me, to tell the difference between what is and isn't a tunneling killer, you have to ask yourself, did they intentionally come back right for me? Or did they happen to find me? Did somebody lead them to me? Did they stumble upon me? I don't advocate for repetitiously chasing the same person over and over with disregard to everyone else. Tunneling, generally speaking, is a terrible strategy for most killers. If you're just focusing on one person, that means you're missing out on a lot of free hits, which is a lot of points you're missing out on. You're missing out on hooks of other people. You're missing out on sacrifices on other people. To tunnel one person down is to neglect and ignore a lot of opportunity to get blood points and to rank up. So it generally isn't really a viable strategy at all in most cases. You'd be better off hitting somebody, slugging them, chasing somebody else while that person gets healed. I mean, the more hits you get in this game, the more points you get. And obviously you want to maximize on your hooks, but if you're splitting the pressure amongst the entire team, preventing them from working on generators, this is all stuff that's beneficial to you as the killer. Tunneling just isn't. And I think a lot of killers end up finding that out. They try to camp or they try to tunnel and they get to rank 15, 14, 13, and suddenly they're getting outplayed and they stop doing it. And so because that phases out usually around green ranks, I generally, anytime anybody tells me that I tunneled them, I have to turn them around and say, I don't think you know what you're talking about. I don't think you actually know what tunneling is. At the end of the day, if you get off the hook and I re-down you, or if you get off the hook and I'm chasing somebody else and eventually I find you again, you have to understand that at high level play, letting you go out of some sort of sense of respect, I will chase somebody else and hook them. But after that, if I see you again and you're on death hook, I'm going to go for you. You're the weak link. If I don't, that could cost me the game. If I go for somebody else, that could cost me. And that has cost me before. There's a lot of killers that try to be too nice because they're afraid of being called a camper or a tunneler. And so they have this sense of respect of oh, you got unhooked a minute and a half ago, so I'm going to let you go. And that costs people matches, and people are caught between being called names or like doing the choice that makes sense as a killer that isn't too nice, but it's not inherently mean either. I generally think that tunneling doesn't very often happen, right? Anyway, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. I have a lot of thoughts on like tunneling versus like slugging somebody. And like I said, I prefer to be respectful and just let somebody slug if something slips up. But there's obviously a fine line, especially in late game, for, you know, making things happen. What do you guys believe as killer, as survivor? I'd love to know down in the comments below. And of course, I'll pray to the entity to see you in the next video.